Hey, welcome to this episode of Coach Speakeasy. We have a chance today to be joined along with Tom Develice, head coach for the Andover Huskies. And Tom, it's been a joy watching you as a coach. Your calm demeanor, even though it's probably that duck approach some days. But how do you get yourself in that mindset to stay calm and to stay poised on that sideline?
I don't know if I do. People tell me that I look calm, and I don't think I am. I mean, if you asked our players, I think they'd say that I'm pretty fiery and I have a lot of passion. Part of it is telling the kids too, like throughout the course of a game, that you got to ignore the hills and the valleys, and you got to have the ability to let things go and go on to the next play. And I think kids feed off of the energy of coaches on the sideline, right? And so, I do think I have some fire, but at the same point, I don't think, it's too much and out of control that then we lose our kids.
Let's talk a little bit about you growing up in Wisconsin. What really inspired you to get involved in coaching?
A couple different things. So when I grew up, I was the youngest of four. My dad was somebody who had helped coach like youth sports stuff. Obviously, back in that era, 30 years ago now, right? It was different. I didn't start football till I was in sixth grade. My brother played football as well. Didn't start till sixth grade. It was all done through the school. It wasn't youth associations like it is now. So it was a lot, it was always just the dads who were around there helping. And so it was something that my dad always did. And then when I was 12, he passed away. And so there's a couple kids that I graduated with that were in my grade who really took it hard. Just because of the impact he had on them as a coach. And so that always kind of resonated with me. And then my high school football coach is still coaching to this day. He's coaching his grandkids right now at our high school. He's, I think, top 5 in the country of all-time wins. Has an unbelievable legacy at St. Mary Springs High School in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. And he was my math teacher. He's a guy that did math, that coached football, coached track. Really kind of helped me on my path of where I wanted to go. Now, he was a guy that had fire. I mean, I talk about a guy that would get mad on a sideline, but he's also a guy that, as he's sitting there talking to you at the end of the year, he's crying like a baby, right? Because he loved all of his players so much. So I'd say those two guys made the early impact the absolute most on me.
That's great. Post-college, and you get a chance to go to Blaine.
Yeah.
And you take a job there as the offensive coordinator for a couple of years. How was that for you?
Yeah, it was good. When I was playing college football, my position coach was Gordy Shaw, who, if you ask anybody around that time of the late 90s, sure, like he was the connection to high school football for the staff of Minnesota Gophers. And so I knew after 2 years of playing, like I did what I wanted to do. I wasn't going to go on anywhere. That was not my destiny. And so I talked to him and said, hey, I want to start coaching. I want to start teaching. And he's like, I've got 2 programs you can go to. He goes, Eden Prairie right now in the state of Minnesota is dominant. They've just won the last 2 state titles. He goes, or you can go to Blaine. They've lost to Eden Prairie the last 2 years in the state title game. He goes, the one, you will have the greatest football experience in the world. He goes, the other one, you'll also figure out how to coach properly and treat people the right way, and you'll make a bigger impact on people's lives ever. And I said, well, that one sounds pretty cool. So he actually introduced me to Dave Nelson at Blaine. Sure. And that for me, the minute that happened, I was never going back to Wisconsin. That connection was too strong. The staff that we had there between Dave taking me in as a 20-year-old kid, had me coach with him in varsity right away, just to keep me under his wing and show me some stuff. And then from there, it was the relationships with all the other guys who, when Shannon Garrity became the head coach, who had played there, it was something where the two of us were doing a ton together. Where he was the head coach, the DC, I was coordinating the offense, to the point where when Shannon decided he was going to become an activities director, it gave me the opportunity to become the head coach, and it was carrying on that legacy that those guys had built.
You mentioned something about Dave Nelson and having a chance of that connection. What kind of things did he do that made you feel connected with him, and that he was glad to have you as part of the staff?
He's one of the most personable people you've ever met. So like our trainer here, Lisa Jensen, her son Brady's a senior for us right now. Lisa started the same time I did in 1997 and 1998, and her last name was her maiden name at that time. Well, Nellie just saw her a year ago and went up, gave her a hug, and goes, "Oh, Lisa Ostrein." Called her by her maiden name. And he hasn't seen Lisa probably since he left Blaine in 2001. And so this is 20 plus years later, and he remembers her, and that's what made him different, is he remembered people. And you would hear that from everybody. He just did a lot of things, and it was wherever he was, he had an impact on people's lives. And I think that's why, because kids would fight for him because they knew how much he cared for them.
Garrity decided we need to switch up the offense a bit. How did you have the kids prepared for that switch and that transfer to that spread offense?
Well, we were 2007, and we were playing here, and we ended up losing to Andover. That was the first time they made the state tournament, was that year. And so we had a quarterback named James Peterson, who was a baseball kid, really, really great football player, gunslinger type of a kid, and he's playing wing T quarterback. And we got introduced to, his name was Tony Franklin, college football coach, who kind of had a system in place. And it was, this is how we call plays, these are formations. And then it came with like learning videos, and it came with the opportunity to meet with him and go to clinics with him and then call him during the season on Sunday nights. And it's like, you got a major college football coach who's taking the time out for 2 hours on a Sunday night to take phone calls.
Wow.
And so in 2008, that's the first year we ran this system. And we went from being 2-7 in 2007 to the next year we ended up being 10-2 or 11-2, and we played in the Prep Bowl that year. And so, to me, it was a testament to a system. And when you have a system with a foundation, that kids will learn it as long as it's a system that makes sense and it has checks and it has things where if this isn't working, then this is a complement to it, right? And that's how the wing T was. We ran out of those bodies, all the kids that were tight ends and wing backs, we now need to be linebackers and defensive ends. And then it's become this morph system now, and honestly, there's a lot of things we do right now that are still Tony Franklin foundational based things. And then some other stuff that we've developed along the way.
Now you're the head coach. Talk to me about what that first year was like for you as a head coach.
Chaos. Yes, chaos. Shannon was still in the building, and Shannon's heart was still there, but our school district policies, because our activities directors are also assistant principals, is that you can't coach. So that first year of being a head coach, it was great to have him as a resource. I also had to figure things out on my own. I had great assistant coaches who were in the Blaine system for a while. The respect I had for Dave and the respect I had for Shannon, my biggest thing was I did not want to let those guys down. Not at all. I did not want to let the Blaine tradition down.
So if you could give, say, 1 or 2 points of advice to a new coach, what would be 1 or 2 areas of focus you would provide to them?
Relationships matter. Make relationships with kids, right? That's what this business is about. Develop those with coaches, develop them with your kids. You develop them with your parents, but you also know that the parents, when their kids are maybe not seeing the playing time and that kind of stuff, are going to have different feelings about it. And that's okay too, because it's their kids and it's their passions. I think that's the biggest one that right now I think people get lost in sometimes. They worry too much about the wins and the losses, and they forget that the relationships need to be among the forefront. And then the second one is work. Just work. It's not easy. Nothing you do in life is easy, right? But work at it, because I think our players know how hard we as a coaching staff works, and they see that, and I think it corresponds to what they do.
Well, I know building that culture, your focus was making sure each player would look a teacher, an adult in the eye when they're speaking with them and trying to connect that way. And I think that set a great culture tone.
We do that at the end of our 2-day. So our very last meeting in August, we give our kids a theme shirt. That shirt has all of our schedules on the back for the year, all the way from game 1 to the Prep Bowl as our goal. And that was something, again, that I got from Dave Nelson and Shannon Garrity. And then the big thing was that handshake and looking an adult in the eye, right? I've taught math now for 25 years in our school district. I've been a department leader. You can't lead in front of students. You can't lead as a boss of somebody if you don't have that ability to make a connection right away when you meet them by shaking their hand, looking them in the eye, being clear with your words, right? And so something we hope they take with them as we move on.
What was it like coaching your son as a quarterback?
It was a lot of fun. John Kyvig, who's been here forever as well, he always would laugh at the conversations between Connor and I. I was not easy on Connor. I was not easy on him at all. And, there's regrets in that a little bit as a dad and as a coach that, there are things that I put on his shoulders and expectations because he was the coach's son. He was the leader of our team as a quarterback. That probably wasn't fair to him always. But he's also one of these kids that, whether I would have been here or not, if it would have been Rich as still the head coach, I think Rich would have said, this is one of the best leaders we've ever had. And so the message to both my boys so far, even Devin, was you just have to understand that nothing is going to come easy for you, because if any accolade comes your way, it's going to be because you're the coach's dad or you're the coach's kid, and it's your dad. And so everything you do, you need to earn it, and I'm not going to be easy on you. And so, Devin unfortunately got bit with some injuries both his junior year and senior year, but he's a kid that in all that never missed a workout. He never once in his 4 years of high school missed a workout. That doesn't always happen, especially by a kid who isn't always playing and is sidelined and that kind of stuff. And so, I look at him being just as much of a leader as Connor was, because he did the things that many kids aren't willing to do when they're not in the limelight. And so, and there's a lot of those kids, right? Obviously right now we're talking about my two and the special connection it's been to be able to coach them and their friends, but we have a lot of those kids here, and that's what makes this place great.
What does that leader do when you say he's a good leader?
Yeah.
For you, what did you see in the other coaches see that he did so well as a leader?
Well, and honestly, that's what made that team so special is you had a guy like Connor on the offensive side, Caden Wheeler on the offensive side, Ben Audette, and then on the defensive side, you had Samuel Angel, you had Weston Knox, that were the leaders there. And what it was that, everything that they did, their words was less than their actions, right? All their actions were things that the coaches would have said needed to be done without a coach ever having to say it. Right, and so that's in the weight room. That's how they trained and how they worked. That was in the classrooms. It was getting notes from teachers all the time about these guys are some of the nicest people in our school. It's in the cafeteria. It was how they talked to the freshmen when they came in, and it wasn't like we're the seniors. You need to bow down to us. It was, hey, how's it going? What do you need help with? Our weight room culture changed when you have guys who. Your best players are the guys who are in there the longest and sweat the most and work the hardest. Everybody looks around and goes, well, if they're the stars and are doing that, well, then shouldn't I? And that we had a lot of leaders that way.
Connor certainly, overcame some of those discussions between you two. The development, the leadership, call it all the batteries included, the athleticism and the commitment. That had to be a great feeling for you, not only him, but for you as well.
Yeah. It's one of those moments though that for me, I wish I would have taken the time to enjoy it more. That's a regret that I have, is that it goes so fast. You tell kids that, I've been coaching for 27 years, and I tell them it's going to be gone in a blink of an eye. Well, so is the opportunities you have when your kids are in high school. Sure. Those are gone quickly. Let's
talk about the University of Wisconsin River Falls. I know there's been numerous players from Andover. That alone is a great tribute to the program and how many kids are playing at that collegiate level.
Yeah, it's not easy, right? It's playing college football is hard, but I think what's happened is you've had some really good kids that have gone there, and so then our other kids are looking, going, if I want to play, and I look up to this guy who was a good person in high school, God, maybe I should look there, and it's helped because there's been quite a few of our really, really good kids that have gone there.
Connor as well, he's had to learn how to deal with, probably some injuries he didn't know he had in high school.
Torn labrum that happened at some point in high school, and played through it. And, again, I think that's a sign of toughness that, he never really said much. We knew at times his shoulder would be sore, which is expected when you're a quarterback and you're throwing as much as we did. But never really said much. And then he got to a point where like he physically could not throw the ball. He would walk downstairs and it would just pop out and go back in. And so, yeah, it was time to get that looked at a little bit. It's like you said, though, I think at the end of the day, the fact that the connections he's made, the relationships he's made with people, people know him there as the person he is versus ever just him being a really good athlete. So as he gets through those frustrations, he'll realize that, that is the most important thing.
So let's talk a little bit about what are Saturday nights like at the Develice house? Football season, non-football, watching football. You have your wife Trina also there to kind of oversee, probably manage, get everything else done in time. What do you guys like to do as a family on Saturday nights? Is it board games?
No.
PlayStation 4?
Well, my wife probably likes to do that. I don't like board games. That bores me. Saturday is kind of the one day that I do try to not do much at night. I'll watch games on Huddle, but I just watch them as if I'm a fan watching Huddle. But then at that point, my wife and I, we try to do something just because it's a grind and it's a lot of hours and a lot of time. Now it's, when we get a chance to go to River Falls, we'll go to River Falls with both older boys there. So we go down early and we tailgate, and our middle son, Devin, will come and join us with Mason, our youngest, and then we'll go to the game. And the off season, my wife is the head dance team coach at Blaine. So then it's like a complete role reverser in our house. So she has dance competitions all day Saturday, and it's funny because when the boys were younger, like I would take the stroller with all three boys to day-long dance competitions every Saturday of the winter season. So now that the boys got older, and Mason especially still in traveling basketball, it saved me because I can say we have a traveling basketball tournament. I don't have to go to full-day dance. But both her and I have, from the day we met, we're both people that were interested in coaching. She's a teacher. She's an elementary school teacher. So we kind of live that life of like, two coaches, two teachers. But it's something where like we have both said our kids have at times maybe missed us at different parts of our seasons, right? In the fall, I haven't maybe been at everything for them. And my wife in the wintertime has missed some things. But the one thing our kids, I think, have seen is firsthand dedication and commitment and putting the needs of others before your own. Overall, I hope that it's something that our kids use as a value as they grow up and become adults.
When I asked you about making it to the semifinals of the state tournament and that tough loss to Chanhassen, who eventually won the state tournament, when I asked you to talk about that, the first thing you mentioned was the kids on the team deserved that experience.
Our kids work hard. One of the things that we did differently was we had people come in from previous state tournament teams. So Garrett Prentice, who's one of our freshman coaches on staff, was on 2 Andover teams before that lost in the section quarters. We actually had Andy Grubner come out and talk to kids too. Connor came back from River Falls, talked to our guys. And all of them, what we asked them to talk about their experience in high school, what it meant to them, what it also meant to be that close and not get there, and to be one of the teams that has made it to the state quarters and hasn't seen the next round. Yeah. And all of them talked about like how special it was and that it would be great to do that. And the thing that they missed the most is the locker room conversations, the stretch line conversations, that time. And they said, don't worry about the result of the game. Worry about the relationships and your best friends, not seeing them next week. And having those guys come out and say that, I think, was a different shift in mindset than worrying about getting to that next game. We tell our kids, don't be selfish often, but we used that term last year to say, be selfish for next week. That's okay. Be selfish to be with the kid next to you. Luke Denicky and Chase Pemberton that have been lifelong friends growing up, right? And there is a whole nucleus of those guys, and you look at that and say, be selfish to have one more week together. And they took that on, and it was fun.
Undefeated that first year, COVID cut short, and the next season, undefeated through the season, and then a tough loss in the quarterfinals in an ice bowl type of mini game there. Yep. But what do you attribute that early success to?
Kids. we had really good football players. You look at it and you look at the rosters of kids. Sam Masungu's playing at Cornell. Sam Sam Angel is playing rugby at the University of Minnesota. Weston Knox is playing hockey at the Badgers.
Yeah.
We have guys that are playing Division III football. We have guys who decided that they didn't want to keep playing sports, but they're just really, really good athletes. They embrace change. They embrace some of the things that we were going to do differently. I don't think it was a huge shift either. I think the things that Rich did as a staff and Rich did himself as a head coach was very similar to what I do. But we are different people. We have different personalities. And so the things that I came in with that did things differently, they were very accepting of. And I think that showed, again, the ability of the kids. And so I was blessed that way. And the coaching staff, that the guys that were on Rich's staff that stayed, honestly, if those guys would have chosen to leave, like at some staffs they do, I think we would have not had the success we did. Those guys that Rich had that stayed with me are unbelievable people. A couple of them have moved on and kind of done their own things, and a couple have moved to teach and live where they grew up. And they're guys that we still talk to, I still talk to, and I knew them for a year, maybe 2 years, but they're just great people. So I'm so blessed and fortunate to have had the ability to come to this program when I did. It's been a great run so far, and really been just blessed by what I was able to walk into.
The last question, too. Your years of coaching, many games, many players, there are one or two moments that just currently just stick with you as, wow, that was a moment. That was an experience.
Yeah, there's a few. Comes back to kids, relationships. There's a kid named Eric Hagan who I coach at Blaine. He was graduated in 2002, so realistically he was only like 5 years older than me, and he's still a guy I talk to that we that year went to the Prep Bowl in 2001, and him and I probably had one of the longest embraces I've ever had with a player. He was an offensive lineman that was 5'10", about 220. I actually just talked about him today to our kids afterwards. Best offensive lineman I've ever coached. He had so much passion. It was unbelievable. He's a guy that he would do anything for anyone, and everybody knows that to this day. You have players like that. You have players like Connor Melton at Blaine, 2016, 2017. He was a freshman B quarterback. He ended up not even starting half his games as a sophomore. Doesn't start for us his junior year until game 4 because our starting quarterback separates his shoulder. Goes against Totino Grace, the number 1 team in the state, powerhouse in the state that year. Doesn't flinch and ends up taking us all the way to the state semis against that same Totino Grace team. And we were within a 2-point conversion of beating them. And that kid just took everything on his shoulders. Didn't say much. He had a great smile, great personality. He was a lefty gunslinger kid. But a couple of years ago, he's coming back from, he's at Arizona now, lives out there in Arizona, and was flying back home and heard that I was somewhere and stopped there instead of going home to come and say hi.
Wow.
That's an impact. And then 2 years with my kids. Yeah. That means a lot. My son still has a picture of him and I hugging against that loss against Rogers at Osseo High School. And just like that memory and the ability for us to be on the field together, that's irreplaceable. Because like right now at my house, when they're home, Caden Wheeler is at our house. Noah Van Voorst is at our house. So you got Sam Masungu then, who's one of my son Devin's really good friends. Ben Kopetsky is at my house. There's groups of guys that are at my house from those 2 years, and it's just laugh and great relationships, and you're seeing the great things that they're doing. So those would be the highlights for me, but it comes down to those relationships with kids.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's it. And I think that's a reflection of your connection and your ability to relate, build that trust, and build a team rapport as well as it continues.
It's been fun. Well, hopefully I have a few more years here.
Hey, Tom Develice, thanks for joining us.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.